Hello and welcome to another edition of the Cyclone Insider Show. I am Travis Hines. He is Eugene Rapay. We work for the Des Moines Register and cover Iowa State athletics, of which there is plenty to discuss as we sit here in early November. I think a lot of people, Eugene, would prefer we start talking basketball, but I think the immediate concern is the 5-4 football team. Lots to talk about on that side of campus. Iowa State has lost 4 in a row, most recently to Arizona State, playing without its starting and star quarterback and its star wide receiver. Iowa State loses 24-19, 4 in a row, road trip to TCU on deck. Things are not well with the Iowa State football program right now on a number of fronts, from the quarterback to the defensive alignment. I think people are starting to question again, to the trajectory of this season. I don't think anybody has gone full insane yet to question the trajectory of the program, but give it 3 more losses and I'm sure we'd all be there. But the truth of the matter is Iowa State is not playing good football right now, Eugene, and their ability to pull out of this tailspin, I think, is very much a question right now.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem too. I'm sure you've gotten all the questions. How do you fix this team? Where are they going wrong? And it's really a multiple front problem between the offense, defense, and special teams. There are several areas, at least at minimum, for all 3 phases of the game that just haven't been up to par, especially when you look at that 5-0 start when it felt like everything was going right and it was good complementary football. Sure, you got a couple of injuries, but now it's just a 4-game tailspin that goes way beyond injuries. It's now an execution problem and a couple of other things too.
I think I don't think the number one problem by a long shot for Iowa State right now is quarterback Rocco Becht, but I do think the number one conversation about Iowa State football right now is about Rocco Becht and what is, I think, unquestionably deteriorating play. The speed of that deterioration and the depth of it, I think, is debatable. And I think I come down on the less concerned about Rocco's side of the aisle than I think a lot of people are. But I think it is undeniable that he's not playing as well as we have seen him play for over 2 seasons, and is playing, some of the worst football of his career. And I do want to also preface by saying this, I don't think he's been horrible these last 4 games. Thought he was at his worst on Saturday, going 18-36 with a pick and 186 yards. That to me was the first time where I looked at it and said, oh, he played badly. I think against Cincinnati, he was fine. I think against BYU, he was fine. And I think against Colorado, he was okay too. I just don't know that we've seen a collapse from him. Although I think Saturday was teetering on that with his missed throws. Didn't get help from the wideouts at times. I think the tone kind of got set on that opening drive where Chase Sowell drops a first down catch on 3rd and 7 that could not have been thrown any better. I think it's clear to me, or at least it would appear to me, that that the wide receivers and Rocco Becht are not engaged in a mutual trusting relationship right now. They do not seem to be on the same page. And I think we saw that a lot at Colorado. And I think now that's starting to snowball. We heard Rocco saying they watched extra film together, which is great, but it's also a sign of how bad things were, right? That you need to sit down and say, I'm thinking X and you're thinking Y, and here we are in the middle of October. That's not the time to be getting on the same page. That's time to start taking off. And so those are, I think, issues. But again, I don't think that this has been a catastrophic level of quarterback play. And I don't think it is at all apparent or even likely that Alex Mansky or Connor Moberly are going to be better than the 3rd-year starter, the guy who Iowa State fans were getting mad about not being on Heisman lists just a few weeks ago. So I do think this is a difficult situation, and it might ultimately be one where, if Rocco does not play better, I think they will eventually have to make a move. I just don't think they're there yet. And the question is, what does Campbell think? What does Mauser think? And would they err on making a move too soon or making a move too late? I know where I would stand, but it's just, it underscores once you start losing, your problems multiply really fast. Because if they go down and they get a touch and Sowell doesn't fall down a yard from the first down on Saturday, and they get what previously had been trademark Rocco Beck game-winning drives, like, we're not having this conversation, even if he had the exact same game up until that final drive. Nobody's talking about replacing Rocco Beck. So I do think this is a little overwrought, but I do think at the same time, it's fair to at least acknowledge that the quarterback who Iowa State is so dependent on is not playing as well as he is expected to be playing, and as well as he has played as recently as, 6 weeks ago? 5 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think the Arizona State game, I think that's a very fair assessment to call it his worst performance of the season, probably the worst of his career, or probably some of the worst ball he's played since coming to Iowa State. If Iowa State did not get the ball back at the end there, he would have posted season lows in completion percentage and passing yards. And not to mention, a lot of those incompletions were just not pretty ones. Sure, he's not on the same page as a wide receiver, so that's why I don't feel like it's entirely his fault. Of course, he's going to get a big portion of the blame because he's the quarterback. All eyes are on him, and he touches the ball in every play. But there were still the drops. There's still the miscommunications. But for Rocco Beck, the thing is we don't know what Alex Mansky and Connor Mobley can provide, and I cannot believe that they would be better than a third-year starting quarterback. But I do understand why some fans or why some people are starting to start that conversation. But I would, if I were Matt Campbell and Taylor Mauser, I don't think you look to replace him soon. And also, if you were to replace him, let's say you pull him, what kind of statement is that making moving forward? That's like the ramifications of that. It's not just a quick Band-Aid problem for this year, but it could also mean, some awkward conversations between Beck and the coaching staff and some of these other guys after the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think Iowa State fans will look at this and say, he's not playing well, the team is in free fall, and Rocco's a smart, loyal, dedicated guy. You can make this move and come back from it, which is to say that Rocco returns a starter next year and is a fourth-year starter, and everything just goes beautifully and swimmingly. I think if you were not an Iowa State fan, or if you're an Iowa State fan and you saw this exact situation anywhere else, you'd look at it and say, oh, if they make a move there, that dude's gone. Like, he's going to hit the transfer portal. Number one, because he took less money to come back to Iowa State. And number two, you switch a quarterback out, that's a vote of no confidence, especially with a guy with eligibility left. Like, again, maybe Rocco would come back from that, but you wouldn't expect him to anywhere else in the country. And I do think Iowa State, Matt Campbell, Iowa State fans have to be able to hold two thoughts in their heads at the same time. One, we have to do everything we can to win every single football game in front of us, one at a time. And also say, let's not sabotage our future to try to get 6, 7, or 8 wins in a year where we had Big 12 title aspirations. And because, what incremental improvement are you going to see by bringing in either a true freshman or a redshirt freshman who've never really seen real action in a game? I just think the odds of seeing appreciable difference-making improvement from that position is really unlikely. I think it is hugely more likely that Rocco Beck starts looking like Rocco Beck than it is that Alex Mansky or Connor Moberly start looking like Rocco Beck from 2 years ago or a year ago or 6 weeks ago, right? Like, that's where I fall. And that's not to say, eventually this couldn't get to a place where you just look at how Rocco's playing over 5, 6 weeks and say, it's still going down. You got to make a move because there's no way for this to go back up without a hard break, reset, or change of scenery or get into spring or whatever it is. I just don't think they're there yet.
Yeah, that just seems kind of like an overreaction a little bit, to make that drastic of a move and to go with one of the younger quarterbacks, especially when I still feel like the wide receivers should get some of the blame as well. I mean, and it's also just part of a realization that this is not Jalen Knoll, this is not Jaden Higgins, and that's definitely part of the conversation as well. I'm sure There were times last year where maybe they masked some of Rocco's shortcomings, and that's a part of the equation as well. But this current crop of wide receivers just isn't that. But also, it's one thing when you can't perform, but if you're just having simple drops and open passes or you're not running the right routes, those feel like fixable problems, and it's frustrating for Iowa State that they just haven't been able to remedy that situation yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, the part that's probably being under discussed that we were talking a lot about a few weeks ago is the wide receiver. Chase Sowell, I think he's been okay. I mean, he's obviously had some really nice moments. It depends on like how much do you weight the drops in terms of his entire body of work. I think you can say the same thing about Brett Eskelson, that he's had some really good moments, but he's also had some like really tough ones with those drops in key situations for both of those guys. So how do you weight that? I think that's going to be, everybody's going to look at that a little bit differently, but I don't think anybody's going to say those guys are like top tier. They have not produced at a top tier Big 12 level, right? And then you go beyond that, and it's like Carson Brown is their third best wide receiver. I mean, it's not Dominic Overby. It's not Eli Green. I mean, and like you look at the guys that they brought in, like the transfer portal wide receiver has gone from one of Iowa State's strengths to, you look at the last 2 years, and I think the results are really underwhelming. You got nothing from Isaiah Alston. You've gotten next to nothing from Eli Green. You've gotten next to nothing from Xavier Townsend, and you've gotten like league average from Chase Sowell as your number one wide receiver or your number two wide receiver. And I think like you're now seeing it 2 years in a row that I think those the results are kind of matching misses in the transfer portal, at least when you're talking about, and this is a high bar to clear, I know, replacing Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll.
And now you want to factor in Ben Bramer's injury and how long, who knows how long he'll be gone for. Matt Campbell didn't disclose any specifics regarding that front, but now that's another big target, a red zone target that's off the table, and that just puts one more defender, more attention on Gabe Burkle and neutralizing that tight end depth that we saw Iowa State capitalize on early in the year and make it just as big of a part, maybe bigger part of the receiving game until some of the wide receivers got their footing under them. But now you lose Ben Bramer, and now what's the passing game going to look like?
Yeah, you mentioned the red zone. I want to talk about that, but I think we still got a little bit more to dig through at the quarterback position. But I do think like the red zone, especially in the light of Bramer's injury, which thankfully he appears, or they have told us that Ben's okay, and that the most frightening outcomes of what looked like maybe was happening on Saturday did not occur. So obviously that's great news for Ben, Iowa State, and everyone. But to go back to Rocco, what is the fix for him? It's to just go look like himself, right? Like, and the other part here, and Campbell nodded to it, is what's his health? I mean, it's not hard to say, like, since he got absolutely rocked against Arizona, rocked against Cincinnati, that he hasn't been the same. Now, I don't know if that's a causation, a correlation, or being completely independent of each other, but I can say Rocco Beck took massive hits against Arizona. He took a massive hit, probably a couple, against Cincinnati. And since those games, he has not looked like himself. Campbell, again, nodded to that. We'll never know how injured Rocco Beck is, which, okay, you could just tell us and then we'd all have an idea of what was going on, because now your opponents know he's hurt. So the secret's out. But that's a reporter's complaint, lament. But like, that's the other part of it. Like, and that is that's probably the out here if you're Iowa State and Rocco Beck, if you want to make a move, or you think Rocco needs to just like take a breather, he's hurt, we're going to sit him down and then he'll be back when he's healthy. Like, that's your option. But I don't know if they're at that point yet. And like, is that a real thing, or is that a saving face thing for everybody? And if it's a saving face thing, I don't know that really moves the needle much on, Rocco's assessment of where he wants to be after the year, if he knows he wasn't hurt enough to be sat down. and whatever they say publicly. And I think again, so it's a tricky spot. But to say again, he's obviously hurt to one degree or another, to one body part or multiple.
And he's also been spotted with the brace on one of his arms under his sleeve. So a little craftiness there. But regardless of how you want to slice it or whatever it is, Rocco Beck does not look like Rocco Beck. And he definitely has not been the same since taking those 2 big hits or getting his head taken off twice in back-to-back weeks and going under, trust the doctors, they're the professionals and things like that. But when the concussion test is he gets off the field and then they force a 3 and out, and then he's already ready back to go in just a matter of seconds or minutes, that's crazy to me. But, for all we know, he was cleared and medically assessed where he's able to go, where he's able to play, but he just really hasn't seemed like himself. And unfortunately, right now, we won't know what that degree is and how much that's exactly impacting him.
Yeah, I think when you talk about him not being himself, obviously anyone who was in Jack Trice Stadium on Saturday or watched it on TV saw that. But I think what you and I saw after the game was a Rocco Beck, lost in the woods, man. I will give Rocco a incredible amount of credit in that I think I can only remember one time, I'm sure there's been more, where he doesn't show up post-game. Win, lose, play well, play poorly. He's there as the representative for the program, for the offense, and for himself. He is there to answer questions. And that sounds like a simple thing to do, but it's not always easy, and certainly has not always occurred from the quarterbacks at Iowa State over the 10 or 15 years that I've been doing it. So you have to get that dude does not shy away from accountability, both privately and publicly. But when he does that, he is usually calm, cool, collected, and has answers, even if they're not. Even if they're answers about things he did poorly or the offense did poorly, there's answers there. This is why this went wrong. These are the decisions we made or the execution we failed on. On Saturday, he was a guy without answers, and looked completely dejected and lost mentally. And again, that's after seeing one of his close friends have an incredibly frightening injury. It's after his team just lost its 4th straight game to what should have been a beatable opponent. So I'm not saying that his confidence is broken or shattered or he's never coming back. I'm saying in that moment, things looked like a young man without answers who typically does. And that has got to be concerning for Rocco and Iowa State.
Yeah, and a part of me was wondering, too, how much of the Ben Bramer collapse and injury was weighing into that. But it was a little jarring. It was definitely a little different to see Rocco Beck not really have answers or just have very short, curt sentences that didn't really explain or really, he's taking ownership and he says that he's not playing well enough or he's not playing up to the standard. But to just not see him have that confidence or that bravado or still, have that resilience was definitely different for Rocco Beck.
Yeah, I go back to the Colorado game where he was really emotional, but he had answers, to the point where he was even stepping in to answer questions for Abu Sama. It was on that 4th and short, I think on the 19-yard line, and a reporter in Colorado asked Abu, "Hey, Abu, what did you see? Why didn't you make it?" And before Abu could even answer, Rocco stepped in and said, "That wasn't Abu's fault. That wasn't our offensive line's fault. I screwed up. It was an RPO. I handed it off to Abu, and I should have kept it and thrown it because whoever the receiver was wide open for a first down." So when I'm talking about a guy who will take accountability, that is sharp and composed, even in moments of stress and scrutiny, that's what I'm talking about. And that was 3 weeks ago. And then on Saturday, it was "Hey, Rocco, what went wrong? I didn't play good enough. That's all I got." That's what he said. And sometimes guys say that because they don't want to answer, because they know the answer is not going to reflect well upon them, or they're annoyed to have to answer to, jabronis like us about why they didn't play well. But to me, that was a guy who legitimately did not have it. He didn't have any more. He just knew he didn't play well enough and didn't necessarily know why or how to fix it.
Yeah, and looking back at that Colorado game too, and that post game, you could see a sense of determination after that. He was ready to kind of get after it, and we saw that when he discussed the extra meetings that they would have in the film to try to diagnose what's going on with wide receivers and him. But after this Arizona State game, it looked like he had just gotten his lunch money taken, the school bully is still on him, and there are absolutely no answers.
That sounded like it was coming from personal experience. Were you the bully or the bullied?
I may have put kids in the locker a couple times.
Jeez, Eugene just terrorizing upstate New York by stealing everybody's lunch money. Man, that's a rough look, dude. Not as rough as losing 4 straight, but so before we move on, like I don't think for everything I just said about how like truly like psychologically I think this is wearing on Rocco. I've already said like I would lean towards not making a move right now pretty stridently. I don't even like I think going to a 2 quarterback thing would be a mistake. Like maybe again, here's another like maybe a card to play is that we saw Alex Mansky come out for like what a play or 2 against Cincinnati, where clearly they have a package for him and come in as a running quarterback. Maybe that's your excuse to be like, oh, we've always had this in the playbook. It has nothing to do with Rocco. We're just going to switch it up and try something. Again, I think that's a flimsy excuse, but maybe that's your ability there. But independent of that, I don't think I would not make the move now. I think you have the opportunity for Rocco to come back on the road in a winnable game to again arrest the deterioration of his play and get things going. I think if you see a replay of Saturday through the first half, through the game on Saturday, then I think you're having a discussion. But as we sit here midweek ahead of TCU, I think you have to give Rocco Becht, who has shown, again, the ability to play high-level winning football over the course of multiple years, the opportunity to play himself out of this, before you really do something drastic that's going to alter the course of your football program, for better or worse. You just don't know. And that's my thought. So I guess, do you have a strong take on this one way or the other?
Yeah, like I think it would be a different equation, or I think, maybe the bench him for a Mansky or a Moberly conversation would have more legs to it if it was multiple performances like this. But it hasn't exactly been disastrous. Like I would say that this is definitely the bottom of the season. But like you mentioned, against BYU, he looked good outside of the turnovers. He was actually playing well. He was moving the ball. He was completing passes. One of those picks was just a desperation heave at the end in an attempt to draw a PI or salvage the game. And then before Colorado, he looked okay. Wasn't good or bad either way. But then Cincinnati, him and the offense were clicking, and it was the defense that couldn't stop anything. So I don't think it's cause for the panic button yet or the bench button yet. I definitely think you should give Rocco Becht another chance here against TCU, and then you see what happens. If it deteriorates further, then maybe. But right now, I think this might have just been a one-game bottoming out, and maybe he starts to at least improve from here.
You're listening and watching to the Cyclone Insider Show from the Des Moines Register. I'm Travis Hines. He's Eugene Rapay. We're going to talk some more Iowa State football. We're going to talk men's basketball here in a little bit, but I think probably can move on from the Rocco Becht discussion. Talked a little bit earlier about the red zone struggles of Iowa State. And what did you say? Were they ranked like 110th in red zone offense or something like that?
Yeah, not great. Not great at all.
Well, and then I saw a chart today from Stats of War, does excellent analytics about quality drives relating to scoring. I sent this to you, and it is incredible. No one has as many quality drives as Iowa State and as little to show for it. The Cyclones are at like 52% of their drives are quality drives, and they're scoring way under the average per quality drive. Like they are moving the football really well, and they're scoring it like not really terribly, but probably terribly. We'll just get rid of it really. I think that's like the best way to put that. And it's wild to me because you look at what Iowa State has offensively, the ingredients for a good red zone offense. I don't know that like what else could you ask for other than maybe an elite, tall wide receiver or athletic wide receiver that just goes up and catches everything, because you got a veteran quarterback, you've got every tight end in the world you could possibly want, talented pass catching tight ends, and a running game that is suddenly doing really well. Like that should equate to a successful red zone offense. And instead, you like that has been a huge issue all year long. Obviously, the Kyle Conradi injury plays a part of that. And then even there's some noise in the numbers there too, because how many times have they, gone to victory formation in the inside the 5-yard line this year? Is it 3 times, 2 times?
Yeah, 2 or 3 times. Yeah, at the beginning of the year.
So there's a little noise there, but ultimately everybody who has watched this team through 9 games knows that this is a bad red zone offense, and it's kind of inexplicable to me as to why.
It was an amazing chart, really. It feels like I love data, I love statistics, and to see it laid out like this, like it is a wide gap between Iowa State and the other people in a similar tier or a ssimilar conundrum as them. But we see it game in and game out, especially during this losing streak where they're able to move the ball, they get big plays. You think they're going to set the tone right off the bat from the opening drive or the first couple of drives, and then all of a sudden they just freeze up, they stall out completely in the red zone, and it's like the running game stops, they shut it down, passing game isn't getting anything going, or maybe there's a couple of penalties like we saw in the Arizona State game where they get backed up from a 1st and goal or a 2nd and goal, whatever it may be. And just now, all of a sudden, Iowa State just can't finish, where it felt like in the beginning of the season, they were locked in. Once they were in there, they were coming away with some sort of points, some sort of scoring.
I mean, like what we saw on Saturday where Bramer's wide open in the end zone, touchdown. Rocco scrambles and then dives 7 yards into the end zone. Like, I am shocked. Like, why does that not happen every time they're down there? They have all these weapons that they should be able to deploy effectively every single time down there. And it has just been mistake and missed opportunity after mistake and missed opportunity. And again, like it's inexplicable to me because like Bramer is excellent down there. Gabe Burkle should be excellent down there. Like Carson Hansen can throw it and run it. Abu Sama can run you over, run by you. Like the offensive line I think has been under discussed as being pretty good this year. I don't have an answer for why this isn't working. I mean, other than the injuries and the penalties, but it defies explanation to me right now.
Yeah, it's very uncanny. You look at the Arizona State game, outside of when they recovered the fumble. If you exclude the drive where they recovered the fumble in Arizona State territory, they had 4 red zone trips and only one of them ended up with a touchdown. Like you're not going to win many games like that, but it's like to the point where it's just the most frustrating riddle equation. There's no clear-cut answer or explanation for it. Maybe you tell them, oh, the red zone doesn't start for another 20 yards, like whatever it may be, because you get these big runs on the first play of drives where maybe a Carson Hansen breaks loose for like 60 yards or they cross midfield, no problem. And then all of a sudden they can't move the ball.
Eugene wants to see Carson Hansen like down the tunnel like Forrest Gump in Alabama. Like, just keep going. Just keep going.
Yeah,
the end zone's that way. You're not in the red zone. Just keep going. 2 things, too. One, Carson Hansen has been really good for them since coming back from injury. I think he is an excellent running back. But I will say, too, like you can see the difference between a Carson Hansen, and this is wildly unfair, I shouldn't even be doing it, but I'm going to, or a Breece Hall or a David Montgomery, where he had 2 runs on Saturday, where if he's 1 mile per hour faster or can, break one more shoestring tackle, it's 70-plus yards touchdown. Instead, they're great runs, long runs, but they're not home runs that we'd seen from like truly like Hall of Fame level Iowa State running backs. So like that shows you the difference between really good and great and taking a little bit of pressure off your offense. The other one is not in the red zone, but I think it was on the 34-yard line. It's 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 6, and Rocco Beck takes a sack 6 yards back to the 40, and now you're punting because you've already seen Conradi at that point had missed 2 field goals. So now you're punting from the 40-yard line. So it's not just the red zone. It's when you're in a scoring position, failing to make pretty standard plays of like, just don't get sacked and you can kick a field goal here and get 3 points in a close game. Instead, you get sacked and you're punting. And like, again, like credit to Tyler Perkins and the Iowa State's coverage team. They did pin Arizona State back twice in that same sequence. But like, you got to be able to help yourself. And it's not just the players either. You go back to the first half, again, not in the red zone, but an opportunity to score points why are they throwing the ball with 8 seconds instead of running it and getting 5 or 6 yards, or at worst centering the ball for Kyle Conradi at the end of the first half? Instead, the play takes too long because Rocco can't find anybody open immediately. Then he has to throw it away, and there's 5 seconds left, and you're just stuck in no man's land. There's more time than you'd want to kick a field goal, but not enough time to actually do anything and feel confident that you'll get a chance to kick a field goal. And to me, it's confounding that they didn't just run the ball, because you're not scoring a touchdown there, right? Like, they weren't trying to. Every route, I think, was in 6 yards that they ran on that first play. So you're only trying to get the field goal anyway. Why not take a higher percentage, lower risk option there? So again, I think that's on Campbell and that's on Mauser too. It's not just the players, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that to me was like we were all looking at each other in the press box when that series of plays happened to end the first half. And then you put Kyle Conradi in a position where he's kind of set up for failure because now he's got to kick a 55-yarder. He's not 100%. Wet weather, wind, whatever it may be, rain's falling. Not a great situation for a kicker.
They'd already botched the PAT after the touchdown at that point, right? Or did that come in the second half?
That was in the second half to potentially tie the game. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was to make it 17-17, and they missed that. Like, and again, like, how does that happen? Like you talk about
first like ever, kicked off the ball, ball off the ground, penalty I've ever seen.
Yeah, like bad luck and bad circumstances, finding like teams already like struggling. It's incredible how sometimes that stuff can just absolutely snowball. Defensively, better, but not much, and probably going to be more of a problem going forward. Campbell said on Tuesday, Will McLaughlin's out for the year. Tayshaun James is going to miss. I mean, Campbell said he's going to be out for a while. There's only 3 games left. So there is a bye week in there. So maybe Oklahoma State, but so maybe after the bye, because they had KU and Oklahoma State after the bye, but certainly not going to play Saturday against TCU. So you're down your 2 starting corners, a starting safety, and a starter-ish linebacker. Not good. I like, to me, the excuses for Iowa State's defensive performance to injury are a little probably overboard. They're down 2 starters. They're 2 of their best. They previously were down 2 starters. They were 2 of their best players at the same position. So like that, there's a compounding effect there. But that's still 2 of 11 starters, right? Like you have to be able to maintain a level of play that we saw them do for a long time last year when they were playing like the 11-string linebacker. So I think there's a lot of issues there, and I don't know that they're going to be able to get better from a personnel standpoint on Saturday or going forward. And I don't know schematically how many more levers John Haycock has to pull.
And adding to that too, David Coffey, who they gave the starting job to, did not play in the second half, and we don't know what his availability is going forward
because of an injury.
Yeah, and that's another secondary player right there, but also just the way that Campbell described him getting the start, alluding to the fact that there's still competition or there's still things like that at this point of the year, which means Quentin Taylor Jr., who was healthy or maybe, whatever his situation is, he's losing the starting job as well. Not a great situation over there at cornerback.
Yeah, I mean, they're literally already playing their 3rd and 4th string corner.
Yeah.
And now you go to Coffey, who is your 5th or was your 6th until Quentin Taylor came in. Like, I mean, not good. But to me, those are all legitimate issues that make Iowa State a worse football team. I do think it's incumbent upon them to mitigate those issues. But to me, you start at the foundation of any defense, and it's up front. And what are they getting up there? Like, I thought Dom played really well on Saturday. I've been a little critical of him because of how good I think he is and how much Iowa State is just begging for people to make big plays. And we haven't seen that throughout the season. I thought we did see that to varying degrees on Saturday. I thought he played really well. But if you told me Iowa State played without defensive ends, I might believe you.
Yeah, where have they been? Where are they? I have no idea.
MIA.
And just that, I mean, it's been a problem since last year, I guess you could say, or even, I mean, especially this year, but there's just no consistent pass rush. There's no there's just not much going on there. And for a group that brought in all these transfers, or they worked hard, just worked hard on the wide receiver front, then on the defensive end, they knew that they needed to beef up that D line. And outside of Tomato and McDonough getting a couple sacks at the last drive of the Iowa game, I don't know if any of those guys have lived up to the promise or potential. Vontre Malone, Cannon Butler's MIA, just nothing, not too much going on there. But the defense did force turnovers, which felt like it had been a while since we'd seen that, and they got 3, and that kept them in the game on Saturday.
Yeah, I wonder when you look at the defense too, is it you lost 2 of your best players who are probably 2 of your better compensated players from an NIL perspective. And I just think about the way NIL roster construction works now, where, we see it in the NFL, what is after quarterback, defensive end, edge rushers are the highest paid in the league, right? There's some outliers there, but that is a premium position. You wonder, is Iowa State getting priced out of that market of difference makers? Because we saw them early in Campbell's tenure, whether it was Jaquan Bailey or Will McDonald, MJ Anderson played really good football for a time there opposite Will McDonald, which, you or me probably could play pretty good football if Will McDonald's on the other side of the defensive line. But I do wonder, when, the guy from the Ivy League is your, big pull, or the kid from UNI, is that a sign that Iowa State financially, just chose to or was forced to invest elsewhere, to where you're just not getting, the caliber and level of production from those positions that I don't know if you need, but you certainly would like, and would make everybody's lives and jobs easier if you were able to generate any sort of pressure or production from those 2 edge spots.
I also think you alluded earlier to a good point where Iowa State did a good job of identifying gems in the transfer portal, and now here we are in a second year in a row where they've kind of missed a little bit. And it's not just the wide receivers, but now here we're seeing it here on the defensive end spot.
Yeah, I think Trey Bell has been a win, especially when you look at the injuries. Is he an elite corner? No, but they brought him in as a depth piece, right? He was always going to be a backup this year. But then you look elsewhere, who are the transfers making immediate impacts?
Chase Sowell is playing. He's one of their top receivers, but we already said it's not the level or the anticipated hype or up to that kind of status that we had expected from him.
Yeah, this has been a bummer of a podcast, man. I guess that's what happens when you lose 4 in a row. But I do think, I wonder, here's the scary part, and we talked about this earlier. Things can get a little better, appreciably better for Iowa State in terms of their level of play and the outcomes. But holy hell, can they get a lot worse? They're 8-point underdogs Saturday?
Something like that.
Kansas is certainly not a gimme. And then you got to go to Oklahoma State, who you are 1,000% better than, no argument here. But are you going to be on a 6-game losing streak, going to play in front of 9 people in Stillwater, Oklahoma, 2 days after Thanksgiving in crummy weather against a team without a coach? That's not a fun spot to be in. You're not going to walk in there in that situation and probably play great football and, just cruise your way to a victory. So to me, the downside here is so much worse than the upside is good. And I think that is, driving a lot of the concern here around this football program, because what does turning it around look like? Winning 8 games? Okay, fine. That is good, right? If they get to 8 wins, it's going to feel disappointing because of the 5-0 start. But if you would have said before the year 8 wins, people would have been okay, that sounds about right. But that doesn't make you feel great after the 5-0 start. I'll tell you what's going to make you feel really awful. It's going to be losing your last 7 games or 6 of your last 7 games. And I think that is, again, I don't know that anybody's articulating that, but I got to feel like that's in the back of everybody's mind, is that the downside here is significant while the upside only offers, a little bit of salvation.
Yeah, but that, the doomsday scenario of not beating Oklahoma State and not being a bowl.
I'm not even going there. I'm not even going there.
I mean, look, you're the one talking about the floor crashing out. I was like, I don't know.
I'm just saying that the downside is legit and it is bad.
It is a possible outcome for sure.
I don't think they're going to lose to Oklahoma State, but I'm saying you don't want to go into that game with all the awful variables there, trying to salvage bowl eligibility. That would be bad. That's all I'm saying.
Guaranteed rate bowl it is.
You're listening to the Cyclone Insider Show from the Des Moines Register. I'm Travis Hines. He's Eugene Rapay. We're going to switch gears a little bit here and talk Iowa State men's basketball to close out the show. Played well in the opener on Monday. The 88-50, I think, was the final score. They've got Grambling State Thursday night before heading up to Sioux Falls to take on Mississippi State in the Pentagon. Eugene, I don't know there were any great revelations on Monday, but certainly to me the headline was Tamin Lipsey looked healthy and he looked like Tamin Lipsey, which after not only the knee injury that kept him out of the preseason, but the groin injury that had him dragging a leg around the Pfizer Forum last March was nice to see.
Yeah, it didn't look like there was much rust in his play either. He comes in to big applause, hits the corner three right out of the gate, and then he ended up playing well and just had a Tamin Lipsey stat line where he finished with 18 points, 6 boards, 5 assists, 5 steals. Like, what more can you ask from him? He played great, but also Milan Momcilovic too. I mean, he shot the lights out when nuclear. I would say that they were co-headliners that day.
Yeah, I am downgrading the Milan performance just because I'm not remotely surprised. I had a couple of people ask me, should we be concerned about Milan going 1 for 14 in these exhibition games? I was like, no.
We're talking preseason.
Yeah, we're talking preseason. And he had to adjust to a new way of playing in the way that they want him to hunt 3-point shots, which, you can also say, he's probably not going to be able to get the looks he got against Arizona as he's got against FDU on Monday night. But beside the point, the kid can shoot. I'm not worried about that. I wasn't really worried about the Tamin Lipsey injury being an issue immediately, but with his injury history, it's just going to be a thing that everybody's worried about all season long.
Right
now. And so to see that he is, whatever 100% looks like for a guy who's, puts his body through the ringer like Tamin does, he looked pretty damn close to it to me.
Yeah, and not just that. The other interesting development for me was Killian Touré getting the start alongside Milan and Tamin, and then Nate Heisey coming off the bench. I don't know what I was expecting, especially after, both guys had played well, and maybe you go veteran experience there, but it looked pretty good. The Killian Tamin 1-2 backcourt punch.
I think what I like about that is that they have some real optionality. I think when we talk about optionality and versatility in college basketball, that sometimes can get overstated because coaches end up just playing one way most of the time.
Yeah.
But I do think for Iowa State, what we've seen from Killian as a defensive stopper on the ball and his ability to be quick and athletic and extend that defense out in a way that I think TJ is dying to do after really not being able to do it last year is huge for them. And then you still have a player as a 6th-year college basketball player who's been good for you and who I still think is very much in the good graces of TJ and the staff to be able to bring Nate off the bench or play him big minutes, little minutes, somewhere in the between. And also Dom Nelson's part of this here too, is I think a guy that they hope is instant offense off the bench. It does give you some buttons to push that I think are less important throughout the preseason or the non-conference, certainly important, but not critical in Big 12 play. And then becomes absolutely how you win in March is being able to counter the way other teams play and other teams that haven't played before or not super familiar with. And I think Iowa State maybe potentially can do that, at least with the pieces here. And a big part of that is Killian looking like a guy who can play at the Big 12 level, and then having really, I think in Nate's case, a proven piece that can play on both sides of the ball. And then in Don Nelson's case, a guy that I think projects to that. We've only seen it now for 2 games and then Monday for him. So I'm less confident about that, but I do think like the potential is there.
Yeah, and then you look at that front court as well. Like I'm curious to see how the backups develop with Eric Mulder and Don Plita. It seems like Mulder has a leg up over Plita in the rotation, but just how the rest of the pieces behind those starters are developing too will be interesting to watch. Do you buy the 10-man rotation?
Not even for a second.
Yeah, seems
Not
crazy
even
to
for a
me.
second.
Seems crazy. It's like an early season experiment, and then you know how it is. Then as the season goes on, it gets trimmed down to 8.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a chance that TJ believes it, but I just have a hard time believing
Sticking to it.
that they're going to stick to it when playing 10 means playing your top 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 less minutes. That's usually playing your better players less is usually not a recipe for success, especially in a 40-minute game where you only play twice a week. Like, again, this is not the NBA where it's a 48-minute game and you're playing 82 of these things. Like, they've only got 32 before tournament play. So I do think there is that option. Now, again, we saw Iowa State, the injury get to them last year. Everybody's got an opinion on why those injuries came through. So maybe the answer is to play more guys. I personally think that's overstated, but I understand the argument.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I don't think they're running them to the ground though. They can't say that argument yet.
You'll see me in Fort Worth on Saturday as Iowa State football takes on TCU. You'll see both of us at Hilton on Thursday, and then I'll be up in Sioux Falls, I believe, on Monday. So tons of Iowa State coverage from Eugene and I at the Des Moines Register and DesMoinesRegister.com. This has been the Cyclone Insider Show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.